Personally, yesterday was a very sad day. Why was yesterday a bad day? Well, it was the day that Genesis announced that they might have to go and get real jobs. Now, if you follow the channel, you will know that I'm a huge Genesis fan. I have been since 1982, when I went on a German trip to Emden and was indoctrinated into Genesis and a bunch of other prog rock bands. My German pen pal's brothers were considerably older than my German pen pal. So he was 13, 14, the same age as I was in 1982, whereas his brothers were sort of 19 and 20, considerably older. And both of them were massive prog rock fans. One was called Thomas, and I got on with Thomas like a house on fire. He used to drive beaten up BMWs. And the other guy was Joachim, was a bit more intellectual, but he was massively into music. And in that 10-day period where I was over in Germany on my first trip, I came away with taped copies, or rather they sent me away with taped copies of a number of albums. One of them was Then There Were Three. But these albums I then progressively over the years either got them on vinyl or got them on CD. So that education has lasted me throughout my life because I always loved this sort of genre of music. Remember, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Go over to Instagram and follow me there. Go over to Facebook, follow me there. That's where the normal notices are. And consider becoming a Patreon. I should at this point issue an apology, or a channel correction should I be more precise. In the video New Year, New Fantom, I made the statement that the Fantom-O does not have general MIDI. Now this is incorrect, and many of you have pointed this out, that it is incorrect. In fact, there are two 5-pin MIDI sockets on the back of the keyboard. One is for MIDI in, and one duplicate doubles as a MIDI out and through. Now, I was really intrigued at why I said that in my my written notes when I did the video. So I went back through sort of the notes that I take as I'm doing research, and on one of the notes I can see clearly I've written no general MIDI shown in picture, and then no MIDI found on specs. What I can't find is the picture that I was looking at, of course. And now I go and look at the general specs, and there is definitely MIDI in the specs. So I wonder whether it wasn't written in the specs when I went and looked at the specs, and then subsequently somebody realised it wasn't there and put it there. Because I can't believe I'm that wrong. But I was wrong. And while I do my best to ensure that I get the facts right when I record a video, I don't do it all the time. So I apologise to all of you that spotted I got it wrong. I apologise to all of you that said that you were having heart palpitations because they thought that it didn't have general MIDI. And I apologise for the fact that the video got it wrong, and so many of you had to comment to tell me I got it wrong. So apology, apology, apology. Now, I titled this section The Pleasure of the Vinyl. And why did I say that? Well, I know vinyl is having a bit of a resurgence at the moment, but I feel really sorry for the youth of today. I think the way that they consume music is very piecemeal. A track from here, a track from there, a playlist built out of multiple artists. Why do you need the compilation album when you can do it yourself on Spotify? They don't put the needle on the record. They don't put the needle on a 12-inch platter and sit back and spend the next 30 to 40 minutes listening to an album that a band has put together. You listen to one side of an album, 30 to 40 minutes, you flip it over and you listen to the other side of the album. I would do this in my bedroom growing up, normally through a particular expensive set of headphones for where I was in my at the time in terms of age-wise. I think my headphones cost me about £90, And I think my whole hi-fi unit that my parents had bought me only cost me about £120. But they were really good headphones, and I have no idea whatever happened to those headphones. I don't know whether they made it with me when I moved out from my parents' house. They could have gone to my brother. It's very possible, I suppose. But I don't know where those headphones are. Now I have that set of headphones, which probably cost me about the same amount of money, I might add, as those headphones all those years ago. But I do feel sorry for the fact that the youngsters don't have the pleasure of listening to an album. And I think it's equally that artists don't try to put out an album of work now that has tracks that mould together. You know, so if there's an album, if there's a theme for the album, all the tracks are kind of have that theme. And I feel sorry for that because I think people don't get that experience now. And B, I think a lot of artists can't be bothered to put together an album in that way anymore. Of course, Genesis come from that era where artists crafted an album of material. They might record 20 tracks, but only 12 of them would make it actually onto the album. The other ones may make it onto later albums or may never make it onto albums. I remember an interview with Tony Banks a few years back when they said, is there sort of an album of cutting room material? And they were all keen to say that there was nothing left in the tank. They'd recorded and issued everything. I somehow don't believe that, but that was the statement they made. And we haven't seen any new material from Genesis since that point. So, read into that what you will. But the early material that Genesis made with Peter Gabriel on singing duties, for me, was the best material that Genesis ever made. These are the die-hard fans that saw the swap from Peter Gabriel to Phil Collins, taking the band in a more pop direction rather than the progressive rock where it was in the early 70s. The crown of the Peter Gabriel era, and this really is what the album was all about, was side 2 of the Foxtrot album. Now, for those that don't know what side 2 of the Foxtrot album is, that is one song, and it's well known amongst Genesis fans. It's called Supper's Ready. This song consumed the whole of one side of that album and went on for 22 minutes. And there are several tribute bands out there, like G2 Genesis in the UK, that do, as one of their party pieces, play the full 22 minutes of Supper's Ready. You will never hear Supper's Ready. Well, you'll never hear it anyway now because Genesis are no longer going to tour. But you've never heard Supper's Ready on any Genesis tour post circa 1975. But it is such a favourite with people from the Gabriel era. In fact, I actually really enjoy Supper's Ready as well, but it is a listen. And then number 3 was the album that started it all for me. While I like other albums, in fact I really enjoy other albums in the Genesis catalogue and the songs they contain, the songs on this album have really resonated with me for the last 40 years. The opening of side 1, Down and Out, with Banks' soft strings overlaid by light percussion, transition into a slightly distorted guitar riff, and then comes the classic toms of the Collins era on drums. Other songs on this album still resonate. Poor Little Nemo, in Seams from a Night Stream, there's a no-nonsense sheriff with Big Jim Cooley, who died with his boots on like all his men. A classic line from that album. That song. The album ended with the ballad Follow You, Follow Me. The surprise single that really changed the trajectory of Genesis, because all of a sudden it opened the market up for people who were not die-hard prog rock fans to listen to Genesis. It was the start of what made Genesis transition from a big prog rock group to a worldwide supergroup. And during the 80s and 90s, that is definitely where Genesis were, a global supergroup. So it is on Saturday with great sadness that the band has turned in its backstage passes. When I saw the band in Scotland in October last year, they sounded great, but you could see that Phil was in great pain and struggling with his mobility. He clearly is in pain, and you have to commend him for actually doing this tour, getting out on stage when he clearly is not feeling great and performing all these dates that he has done. Hurrah for the last domino. The Genesis dynamic following them of allowing members to pursue side projects, Phil's solo career, Mike's other band, Mike and the Mechanics, and probably a lot of people are not aware, the vast body of work which is Tony's composition work, probably allowed this band to carry on coming back together to make music, to go on tour every so many years. It's a shame they didn't come back together earlier, and it's been 13 years since the 2007 tour when I saw them in Paris. Clearly the fans have wanted live performances, and they have clearly been able to fill stadia over the years every time they've gone out on tour, or big arenas. So I was at the O2 on Saturday night and saw them bow out for the last time, and it really tugged here, because for 40 years I've been listening to Genesis, and I've been going to see Genesis from as old, when I was old enough to be allowed to do it. Although I think it is remote, I would love to see this great band do one last album. Yes, Phil can't drum. He's so ill he can't drum, but he can still sing and he can still write. They found another drummer that drums in Phil's style, in the form of one Nick Collins. And if you then took Daryl and made him a full member of the band and put him into the recording studio with the rest of the band, I think they could put new music out relatively easily. I don't think they're ever going to tour again. I know they're never going to tour again. I don't know why I said I don't think. They're never going to tour again. But they would be great for this band to issue one last body of work before they hung up the Genesis drumsticks, keyboards, guitar strings. In the words of Bugs Bunny, I suppose Genesis would now say, "Ba-ba-ba-ba, that's all, folks." And on that note, live long and prosper. Bye-bye.